He had risen through the ranks of leadership in his tribe, and then he got a call. Moses was told by God to send 12 people, one from each tribe, to the promised land to spy on the people and to spy on the land. Caleb was the man who got the nod in the tribe of Judah. At the age of 40, he became a spy. Caleb, along with 11 others, was about to embark on a mission directly from God. They were to bring back a full report of everything they saw in the land God wanted to give them. They were supposed to examine the land, the food it grew, the people who occupied it, and the fortifications it possessed. Additionally, they were told to bring some fruit from the land back to the Israelite camp. The energy, the nerves, the adrenaline, the unknown, all of this and more was swirling through the hearts and minds and bodies of the 12 spies. But they were set apart for this, and they were emboldened knowing that what they were doing was for God and for their people. Caleb and the rest of the crew didn't set out on an overnight stakeout. No, they set out on a 40-day journey of spying where they covered around 500 miles in total. Every step, they saw new things. Every day, they made more conclusions. They gathered grapes, figs, and pomegranates to bring back to their camp. When their journey was all said and done, they returned to their people with some frightening conclusions. 10 out of the 12 concluded that we can't attack the people because they are stronger than we are. Numbers 13:31. They pointed to their discoveries as evidence. There are giants living in the land. There are people groups who are great in number living in the land. We couldn't possibly take the land from them. But Caleb disagreed. Let's go up now and take possession of the land because we can certainly conquer it. Numbers 13:30b. Back and forth the two groups went. What would the Israelites do? Who would they believe? The 10 spies who were aligned with the land being a no-go were successful in persuading the Israelites, and God wasn't happy. Because of their report and the conclusions they came to and shared with the people, that entire generation of people were banished from being able to enter into the promised land, except Caleb and Joshua. What Caleb and Joshua knew was that God would handle every challenge they had in taking the promised land. They knew that it didn't matter what or who they were up against. God was going to make it happen because He always keeps His promises. So imagine for a moment being in Caleb's shoes. You're excited and full of anticipation for what God is going to do in the lives of you, your family, and your entire nation. But everyone around you seems to be too afraid to see past the 9-foot-tall giants a mile away. In your heart of hearts, you know that God can handle these giants. After all, He's the one who created them. Sure, you're wrestling with fear. Who wouldn't? But you're confident that God is able. But on your 40-day journey, you start to notice that there is an alliance happening, just like on Survivor. You start to notice a large group of the others are beginning to let their fear take over, and they are caught in an echo chamber with the volume turned all the way up. They seem to have won the challenge. They convince the masses that their assessment is the most reasonable one. But the irony is they are the ones voted off the island instead of you. They were playing a different game than you. You simply saw God's power as sufficient no matter what you saw on your journey. After all, God told you and the rest of them to simply investigate the land, not offer commentary on it. God is able. You believed it. They didn't. From what we know about Caleb from Scripture, the guy was faithful and consistent. He aligned with God and got to inherit Hebron in the Promised Land. Everything we know about Caleb is honorable. Well done, Caleb. But I wonder if you would accept our limited perspective on him as the whole truth. And Caleb was a regular guy who simply trusted God in each step he took. Was he perfect? Of course not. But we don't know his flaws. We can only imagine what they were. But one thing does stick out with Caleb that ought to give us thought for our lives. He was, at times, surrounded by unfaithful people, but still managed to remain faithful. We inhabit a world unlike and unjust, just like Caleb's. We know his world in many ways because the people who surrounded Caleb and doubted God's power are people we could put names to in our own lives. We know, unfortunately, the struggle it is to remain confident in God's power to do what He intends to do when we're surrounded by people who doubt His power on a daily basis. But what if faithfulness in our world looks quite similar to faithfulness in Caleb's world? What if faithfulness simply means to be filled with faith, to have the confidence that God is able? No matter the trials of today, we can all rest in the knowledge that God has been at work and will remain at work. He is able, and we can either be a part of what He is doing and trust Him, or we can be banished from the place He wants to take us by saying no to His power and yes to our insufficiencies.